Hi, I'm Anthony Originello, CEO of the Chartered Professionals in Human Resources for BC and Yukon. We represent more than 8,000 members, and as the organization dedicated to advancing the HR profession through education, advocacy, awareness, professional development, as well as our recognized and impactful CPHR designation, we are proud to be a sponsor of this show. We have been the voice of the HR profession since 1942. Learn more about us at cphrbc.ca.
In this edition of Careers That Matter, I'm joined by Bruce McIvor, who is the author of Indigenous Rights in 1 Minute. You're also a lawyer. Welcome.
Thank you.
You're a lawyer, author. What does your job look like? Like, how do you do both of those things?
Right. That's a great question. As a lawyer, my job is problem solving. People come to a lawyer because they have a problem. It's like going to a medical doctor.
Right.
You need help with something. So as a lawyer, we're there to find a way to solve it. And it's often not simply about this is what this legal case says, that's what that case says. That's not what it's usually about. It's often about identifying the problem and then identifying solutions and identifying what the barriers are to solving it. And it's often not about the law. I tell people law students, when I teach at UBC Law School, it's about relationships. Often people end up coming to a lawyer because the relationship has failed. And you need to find a way to move forward. It's not a zero-sum game. Can you find a way to help mend that relationship in such a way that your client feels recognized and gets what they need to move on?
So that's the legal side of what you do. But I just heard you say that you also teach at UBC, which I did not list. What does that look like?
Yeah, I teach 1 or 2 courses a year at UBC Law School with my colleague Kate Gunn. We teach Aboriginal rights and treaty rights. I started doing that about 8 years ago or so. It's important because lot of the teaching that law students get is not from lawyers. Some fantastic faculty that'll teach, but one of the things that Kate and I can do and different practitioners, we can actually, with students, this is how it works. Mm-hmm. This is what the law says. I'll help you learn how to read the law. But I'm telling you, when you're out there practicing as a lawyer, this is what you're going to have to deal with, because 95% of the people going to law school will become lawyers. So I think it's helpful for them to hear from a practitioner what the job looks like, what the learning curve will be like, so they can become better lawyers.
You're also the author of this book, but it's not your only book, so you're an author as well. How much of your time do you dedicate to that?
I dedicate a fair amount to that. It's funny because I've got a 3rd book now that I'm working on, and for that book, I wanted to take a more creative approach to explaining Aboriginal law, Indigenous identity, Canadian history to non-lawyers. So I enrolled last year. I'm actually a full-time student. At the same time, doing a Master's of Creative Writing at UBC. I've just finished my first year. So it's a bit funny. I'll teach at the law school. I'll walk across the road, and then I become a student in the creative writing classes. So that'll be my 5th university degree, I think.
So, do you ever not work, and do you have a typical day, or is that just a fantasy?
Well, my typical day is juggling
Yeah.
a lot of things. I've got young children at home that my wife and I are raising. So that's a big part of our day. I'll walk my 10-year-old daughter to school before I go to work. And then I might give advice on a legal case. I have a lot of wonderful junior lawyers that work with me. So I usually don't even get involved in the day-to-day detail stuff, but I give overarching strategic advice. I spend a lot of time traveling because I have clients coast to coast to coast. So I'm a bit of an oddball when it comes to a lawyer in that way. Most years I do about 150 flights a year traveling. I think yesterday I was in Manitoba. So, and I go to a lot of client community meetings. So that's a big part of the legal work. Each day I try to spend half an hour or an hour at my local cafe writing, doing my new book. And because I find for that, you just need to do a little bit every day.
But you're a founder of a law firm as well.
Yeah.
And so you have responsibilities to make that run. What's the scope of the law firm?
Yeah, it's one of the things that I love about the legal profession is that it's so flexible. You can become a multitude of types of lawyers, right? There's not one type. You can go work for government, you can work for industry, you can also, if you have an entrepreneurial spirit, set up your own law firm. So I started 13 years ago, just myself.
And
I was by myself.
What's the scope of your firm now?
Now we're a team, I think we're between 40 and 50 total. We have an office here in Vancouver. We have an office in Ottawa. Wow. Part of the way that I grew it was I got to a certain point and then I did a merger and then I led an acquisition of another firm, bringing them together. So now we're a much larger firm, but I have partners. So I don't do a lot of the day-to-day stuff. And we have incredible team of non-lawyers that work with us that really make it work. So I can't take credit for that. I have overarching responsibilities on what's the vision for the firm, developing new work with clients, but I don't do the day-to-day work now.
So let's go back to you go through school, you graduate from high school. Where'd you go to school?
I went to school in rural Manitoba, a couple of hours north of Winnipeg, pretty well back in the bush.
Wow.
None of my family, I come from a family of 9 of us. And
Métis background, right?
Yeah, Métis, and I'm number 7. And I was only the second one to graduate from high school. I'm the only one to go to university. So I don't come from a professional background. All my siblings are very smart, very successful, but I was the one that went the university route. Never intended to be a lawyer. I actually did a PhD in history first. My expertise is on hydroelectric development in BC.
Yeah.
And then when I was finishing that, like a lot of graduate students, I've had finally run out of scholarships and fellowships. So I needed to find a job to help pay the bills. And I was very fortunate. Just by luck, I started working with some of the incredible lawyers in Vancouver that were behind the Vanderpeet decision and Delgamook and all these cases. So they
that
turned,
Louise?
yes, Louise Mandel
Right.
and Stuart Rush. And they were wonderful about recognizing what I could contribute to the team without having gone to law school.
So did you go back to school then and study law?
Yeah, I worked with them for several years doing incredible range of work on really important cases that went all the way to the Supreme Court. And then I finally decided I have always had a love-hate relationship with the university. So when I worked with Stuart and Louise, they turned me on to what I could do in the law. So I finally decided, I think I'll do this law thing. So I kept working with them half-time, went back and did a law degree full-time.
Wow. So, and then that led you to starting your own firm, and you, as you say, have grown it to a substantial size with representation in different jurisdictions across the country. When you take a look at like yourself internally, you think, okay, I grew up in a very rural setting, and here I am. How many flights did you say you took? About 150 last year? Like you're traveling across the country, you're lecturing, you're writing books and whatnot. What would you say would be a characteristic that you have learned that you possessed? And you may not have known it before, but that you possess, that a young person who's looking at you goes, well, you know, Bruce, I want to be like you. What would you say is something that is a valuable trait to have?
Oh, thanks. Yeah, there's a Tom Waits song called, I think it's called Get Behind the Mule and Plow. And I think that for me has been something that was instilled in me by my mother. Every day you got to get up and do it. Every day, whether you feel like it or not. Maybe you're a little sore, you're tired. Every day you have to get up and get to work. You may not accomplish a lot that day, but you need to do a little bit every day to move yourself forward. And it's the magic of arithmetic. 1 + 1 is 2, + 1 is 3, + 1 is 4. It's amazing how much you can do if you just keep doing it every day, and you can really feel like I feel so fortunate. I'm blessed to have a chance to do this work and make a contribution.
There's a wonderful piece out there called the Power of Marginal Gains, which comes from doing it one bit at a time, and you just slowly keep building, and it then goes from being sort of a an arithmetic improvement to logarithmic.
Yes, that's a good point.
And because you start to hit new plateaus, and then new opportunities come your way.
Yeah.
Well, that's a great note to end on, and it's a positive message to send to anybody, especially young people who we want to have watched this series.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure.